2025 NFL Draft wrapped up last weekend, and I think it's a great time to look at who is the winners, who are the losers from the Dolphins roster. All people we talk about on today's show were on the roster before the NFL Draft. And then with how the draft played out, whose spots could be in jeopardy, who got a boost, and who is ready to roll for this upcoming season. The first winner that we're going to talk about is QB1, Tua Tagovailoa. Why is he a winner? Well, it's because Chris Grier got the offensive line finalized. And you could have made this statement after free agency when they went out and signed James Daniels to a 3-year, $24 million deal. But we have begged Chris Grier and company to finally address the trenches, improve the trenches. And to me, this projected starting group of 5 has been massively upgraded from last year. The only spot where I can confidently say is worse than last year is left tackle, because you had a top 5 left tackle in Teron Armstead, but he retired. You couldn't control that. And you drafted Patrick Paul in the second round of last year's draft, 2024, to be his understudy and long-term heir, right? So he finally goes into that role now. I think you plug in James Daniels at left guard. Aaron Brewer is going to be solid at center once again. Austin Jackson returns from right tackle, but you traded up in the second round to grab Jonah Savaiinaea, who is going to be a starting right guard for you right away. And to me, I think this group is much better than last year. And I'll be honest, I'm going to put high aspirations and hopes on this roster. Do I think they're going to be able to win multiple playoff games and win a Super Bowl? No, I do not. I think they're far away from that. But when you look on the offensive end, there's no reason why this team in offense shouldn't be back in the top 10 of almost every metric this upcoming year. Last year was disappointing. They were a bottom half team offensively in football. A lot of that was because Tua missed 6 games, and in the beginning of the year, they were horrific on the offensive end. But with that offensive line, you finally address the trenches. I mean, James Daniel and Jonah Savaiinaea, unbelievable, like infinitely time better than Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg. You have Jackson returning from injury, Brewer back again. Like, I know Patrick Paul's a question mark, but this offensive line should be hugely improved from last year. Tua should have more time to throw. The running game should be better, especially inside the trenches with Daniels and Savaiinaea coming along. I expect this Dolphins offense to be top 10 in scoring, top 10 in probably yards per game, and hopefully they are able to do that, and Mike McDaniel and this scheme is able to get back to what it was in 2023 and having a good top 10 offense. All right, make sure you are following us over on Instagram. Dolphins Today IG is our handle. We are 49 followers away from 900. When we get to 1,000, we are going to do something special. So go give us a follow. More content in between our Dolphins YouTube videos over on our IG. Dolphins Today IG is where you go follow. The first loser that I want to talk about, it's actually Patrick McMorris, the safety. Remember, he was drafted in the 6th round of the 2024 NFL Draft out of Cal, and I thought he was going to have a chance to compete for a starting role in this draft. I no longer think that's going to be the case. I mean, he sure can compete, and if he just looks better than everyone else, it's going to be hard not to give it to him. But the reason why I think Patrick Morris is a loser, they drafted a safety in the 5th round, Dante Trader Jr., and we know the Dolphins needed to add a safety to the room. I thought they might have went out in free agency and grabbed a Justin Simmons, a Diggs, a Julian Blackmon, but they drafted Dante Trader Jr. out of Maryland in the 5th round, which obviously, you can do math, is a full round higher than what they drafted McMorris in the 2024 draft. So they clearly valued Trader this year more than they valued McMorris last year. But Miami also added 2 safeties in undrafted free agency out of Ole Miss, John Saunders Jr., who I am relatively high on. I think he's one of the top 4 UDFAs Miami signed. And they also added Sei Oladipo from Boise State. Not very high on him. But the truth is, when you add 3 safeties over the weekend and you add them to the room that features Ifeatu Melifonwu, Ashton Davis, McMorris, Elijah Campbell, that's a lot of competition. Now, I still have high hopes for McMorris because I think he's got a good blend of size at 6 foot. He's got decent speed, and I liked what I saw a little bit in those preseason games before he got hurt, which cost him the first half of the season, and he was able to only come in and play like 20 snaps in the last 2 weeks of the year after the Dolphins released Marcus May. I still believe McMorris can make a dent on this roster, But when you add 3 safeties over the weekend, that definitely puts him, Elijah Campbell, those depth safeties more in question when it comes to having a guaranteed roster spot. All right, let me ask you this question as we move on here. What are your expectations for the Dolphins in 2025? Give me what you would be happy with. Is it just a playoff win, division crown, 8 wins? I don't know. Mine is a playoff win. I want to see Miami. It's not my expectations, but I want to see Miami make the playoffs for the 3rd time in the last 4 years and finally win a playoff game to end that drought. No one's on my expectations, but that's what I hope for. All right, winner, Zack Sieler, the defensive lineman. Boy, oh boy, did he need help on this defensive line. And thank goodness, Chris Grier finally went out and got it for him. Because coming into the NFL draft, the D-line was bare. And when I mean bare, I mean really, really bare. You only had Zack Sieler, Benito Jones, and Matt Dickerson on the roster. Neil Farrell, too. You added 4 players. 13th overall pick, Kenneth Grant. He'll be your second defensive lineman. Can play 1 tech, can play 3 tech. I think his explosiveness and motor will be something on display right away for Dolphins fans. You drafted Jaelan Phillips in the 5th round to be that nose tackle alongside Benito Jones. You added Zeke Biggers in the 7th round. You added Alex Huntley in undrafted free agency. There might be still room for one more addition, whether it's a veteran free agent or someone in the trade market. But Zack Sieler going into the draft was going to be the Popeyes worker? Or that's the meme sitting outside with the head down? That was Zack Sieler. Like, he was going to have to do everything. He was going to get absolutely hounded. You added 3 rookies. You added 2 of them in the first 3 picks of your draft, and it's only going to benefit Zack Sieler, who's been, in my opinion, one of the most criminally underrated players, not just on the Dolphins, but in the entire National Football League this past 4 seasons. I mean, 2 years ago, he had 10 sacks when working hand-in-hand with Christian Wilkins, and then last season, he had another 10 sacks alongside 13 TFLs working with Calais Campbell. It's going to be more difficult for him this year for sure, not having a proven veteran like Wilkins or Campbell alongside him, but he is one of the most hard-nosed, hardest-working, gritty players in the National Football League. I thought you could argue that he was the best player on the Miami Dolphins, period, last season. Not the defense, just the entire roster. The best one. And he is going to be a force to be reckoned with on that interior defensive line, hopefully, once again. All right, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we are still going to bring you Dolphins coverage every single day. Videos are coming out twice a day at times as well. Every rumor, news, segment, trade rumor, we'll have you covered. Hit that sub button right now. Let's have another loser here. Liam Eichenberg, the offensive lineman who re-signed with the Dolphins in free agency on a 1-year deal, which I was stunned on. I thought Chris Grier and this coaching staff was finally going to rid themselves of Eichenberg after 4 horrible seasons. But he is a loser because coming into the draft, he was going to have a chance to compete for a starting job. He was. There was nobody there to compete with him outside of Larry Borum for a potential starting left guard spot. But he's finally not in line to start. When you trade up in the 2nd round to grab Jonah, Savaiinaea, the offensive lineman from Arizona, with the 37th pick, you are projecting, you are anticipating that he is going to be one of your starting offensive linemen in week 1 this upcoming season. And boy, oh boy, thank goodness he is, because we do not have to watch this man play for us, hopefully, anymore. Now, he is going to be one of your top depth pieces on the offensive line for sure. There's no debating that. But I'm not going to be that upset about that because he has starting experience. He understands the Mike McDaniel scheme and offense, and he could play left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. He's versatile. He has experience. It's not the worst depth piece. But as long as he is not your full 17-game starter, that is going to make me very happy. And if I'm going to be honest, the number one thing I could have put as Dolphins winners and losers on this video is Dolphins fans. The fact we don't have to watch Liam Eichenberg trot out there in the starting offensive line unit anymore. Hallelujah, man. Oh my goodness. Now I don't want to be mean to the guy. I don't, because by all accounts, he's a nice guy. He's been nice to the media. He's a good locker room dude. But the guy sucks at playing football. And unfortunately, that's the bottom line here in the National Football League. Winner, Cam Smith. Yeah, didn't expect to have Cam Smith on the winners list going into the NFL draft, but it is abundantly clear to me that he is going to have another chance once again to have a role on this Dolphins football team. And now, like I said, Dolphins fans were winners for Liam Eichenberg and for the draft pick of Jonah Savaiinaea. Well, the Dolphins fans aren't winners with him being the cornerback 2 on this roster right now. Seriously. This is a tough watch, man. This is a tough watch. When you look at the cornerback room for Miami, Cater Kohu returns. Jalen Ramsey is still on the roster, but that likely spot is going to be vacant very soon. I mean, the corners you have outside of Ramsey and Kohu on the roster currently are brutal. Second-year UDFA Storm Duck. Cam Smith, trust him absolutely 0%. Ethan Bonner, Artie Burns, and Jason Marshall Jr. You draft in the 5th round. This room is, I would argue, it's the worst cornerback room in football. And I don't think I'm going to meet a lot of resistance arguing that either. But when you don't draft one high, and Jason Marshall Jr. was your only corner that you drafted, and it was a 5th-round pick, well then, yeah, the former 2nd-round pick out of South Carolina is going to be a winner because he has a chance to become a starting boundary corner for this team once again. And I don't think that's a good thing, especially when you saw how he played last season. Didn't play his rookie season with Vic Fangio. Missed the first 4 games of the season last year due to injury. Came back and was horrific. Played 103 snaps in coverage. Got tortured. I mean, I'll never forget that game against the Bills in Week 9. That game against Arizona in Week 8. Absolutely horrid, man. It was absolutely horrid. He got cooked. I mean, you just see the completion percentage allowed. You see the QB reading when targeted. No PBUs, a lot of touchdown. He was terrible. He has one last chance to turn his career around because if he gets hurt again in the preseason or if he has a bad preseason and bad training camp, there's a legitimate chance that he is cut before the season, and there's nothing that would make me upset about that based off what I've seen throughout his career so far. All right, before I give you my confidence level, let me know yours. What is your confidence level in Cam Smith being a starting corner for the Miami Dolphins this upcoming season? Scale 1 to 10 for me down in the comment section. 2.1. And I'll be honest, that might be generous. I'll give the guy credit because he's got good size. He had relatively solid speed coming out of college, but he has just not put it together whatsoever. And you hope that something clicks year 2 under Anthony Weaver. He's able to stay healthy, and the Dolphins get 2 more years of good Cam Smith under a rookie contract. That nothing would be awesome for Miami more than that, but I unfortunately don't see it. All right, the final winner. It's a little dual combination here. 2 veteran edge rushers, Bradley Chubb and Jaelan Phillips. So we have 4 winners. We have 2 losers on this video. I'd like to be a little bit more positive on today's episode. But why are Bradley Chubb and Jaelan Phillips winners? Well, it's because Miami added no edges. Not one. With the Dolphins' 8 pick, they did not take 1 edge. And in an undrafted free agency, they didn't sign an edge. I think Miami and Chris Grier clearly expects Jaelan Phillips coming off of a torn ACL, missing basically the whole last season, Bradley Chubb, who did miss all of last season, to come back and be their prominent selves in 2025. So your edge room, barring injury, is practically set. It's Chop Robinson, it's Bradley Chubb, it's Jaelan Phillips, it's 2nd-year man, 5th-round pick last year, Mohamed Kamara, and then Quinn Bell, who you re-signed to a 1-year deal in free agency. Those are your 5 edges. The Dolphins kept 5 edges active every game last season, and I think those are going to be the projected 5 barring injury before the season starts. Phillips should be ready week 1. Bradley Chubb will be ready week 1. And then you obviously know Chop Mo and Quinn Bell are going to be ready. So those are your 5. And those 2 veterans, and Phillips and Chubb, they're winners because the Dolphins didn't add a single one. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Appreciate everybody tuning in here on this episode of Dolphins Today. Continue to be subscribed as we are bringing you daily content here on the channel. So hit that sub button right now.